My boss sues me for not accepting a lower salary. So I bankrupt his company to teach him a lesson. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell for notifications. I work as a logistical consultant and have done so for the past 7 years. Most of my work is short-term contracts to update or optimize logistical systems for manufacturers and delivery businesses. I do have a couple of long-term contracts with repeat clients, and this story is about one such client. I got a job offer 6 years ago with a friend who inherited his family's machine shop. His father is a brilliant man, but not business savvy in the slightest, and the entire business was teetering on bankruptcy. My main job there was optimizing the production method for both existing contracts and future contracts. This was my first long-term contract, but I'd been doing similar work for a few years and had gotten a couple of patents for producing some intricate parts before getting this job. In the contract negotiation, I made sure that any patents developed in the course of my work would be retained completely by me. The contract term was 5 years before re-evaluating. It took a lot of time and work, but the company became rather successful, especially considering the condition my friend inherited it in. 2020 happened, and after about a year of trying to stay afloat, my friend sold to some entrepreneur who wanted to get into the industry. In the months prior to the sale, the new boss was trying to familiarize himself with the business. Being in charge of logistics, I had given him a tour of the place and informed him of the patented methods used. This was happening right around the time my contract reevaluation was supposed to happen, and I asked whether I'd be negotiating with him or the new boss. He realized I didn't want to be stuck in a contract I would negotiate with him if he wasn't going to be my boss, and he assured me that he'd make sure my new contract would be negotiated with the new boss. The new boss started restructuring and laying off most salaried employees and cutting benefits like vacation and sick time as soon as the acquisition went through. I was not a fan of this new boss, since he, in addition to this, was a jerk with zero experience and refused to acknowledge the fact. He didn't understand exactly what my job was and thought it was unnecessary. I could tell he was just waiting for my contract renegotiation. Fast forward about a month into the new regime and enter the chaos that was my negotiation. He was of the opinion that I was overpaid and inefficient. He all but said that I was unnecessary. My only options were to either essentially become a part-time contractor with an effectively 70% pay cut to what I was making and none of my other benefits, or be fired. When he gave me the ultimatum, I was beyond shocked. I immediately contacted my lawyer, and he told me the contract was absolutely insulting. Needless to say, I chose option 2. Over the course of my time there, I had filed 2 patents that were extensively used by the company. With shorter contracts, I typically negotiate for better royalty rate than benefits or salary. But since this business was both with my friend and supposed to be long-term, I opted for negotiating benefits. About a week after the negotiations were completed, I told the new boss we'd need to discuss royalties before my term was officially over. He was not amused and was dismissive. After enough pressing from me, we had a meeting with lawyers present. What's important to know is that one patent is extensively used in the production of an electrical device for the company's biggest client. The royalties deal written up by my lawyer was the standard one I use for most companies, which was more expensive than my previous contract. New boss was shocked and fuming, saying how this was completely ridiculous and bordering on extortion, considering how much more expensive it would be and how not being able to use the patent would mean he'd lose clients while shifting production methods. I told him that he had in total 6 months of time to figure out what it was that I did, and to familiarize himself with the company and the fact that I had told him when I gave him the tour that I was the patent holder. He also could have asked for a quote in my usual rates. The first meeting ended very abruptly after this, and 3 days later, he came with an insulting counteroffer where I'd be employed again but with far less benefits than I originally had. I told him I don't want to work for him, and that he either pays my rate or change production methods. This would entail replacing a lot of tooling and equipment and retraining workers. He threatened to sue, and got rather belligerent, so I told him I'd see him in court if that was the case. Otherwise, he knows my offer and has my contact info. He quickly realized that even in the unlikely event of the court deciding in his favor, that he'd still lose a lot of money in legal fees. After the meeting, I told my lawyer to draft a cease and desist and to have it ready for when the contract expires. New boss started looking for my replacement. He had not stopped production or even told the clients about it during this time period. The day after my term ended, I sent the cease and desist letter, and production stopped. He lost most clients. Most employees just jumped ship, and last week he declared bankruptcy. I hope the jerk learned his lesson. Never screw over the logistics guy. Edit 1. As a lot of comments pointed out, the entrepreneur, who for simplicity we'll call Bob, seemed both stupid and ill-informed of what canning me would do. I hadn't really thought about this as I had checked out of the issue after my contract negotiation with Bob. I wasn't even required to come in for the last 2 weeks, so I didn't. I've asked a friend and some coworkers who stayed on after I left about what the plan was. My friend told me that he informed him both in writing and while in discussions of the patent issue. Bob wasn't especially concerned and told him that he's had to deal with proprietary complications before. The warehouse manager and head bookkeeper informed me over lunch yesterday that Bob had hired a patent lawyer to find out exactly what would need to be changed to the process to no longer be infringing. This sort of thing is common in the pharmaceutical and chemical manufacturing industry to renew patents for corporate interests. The warehouse manager was told to increase production and create a surplus before my contract expired, so that the line could be modified and the orders for the clients could be filled while he had talks with the clients. However, the only people still employed that had the necessary information to help the technician change all the machines was the warehouse manager and the floor manager. Between the lack of hands, unexpected complications in implementing the modifications, and having only 2/3 of the floor machines actually working, the surplus had run out, and the orders could no longer be filled. The bookkeeper said the only one who knew the specifics is the client and Bob, but the client had apparently agreed verbally but not in writing to the change in the product and the possibility of not receiving full orders, as the production line was being modified. The mounting economic pressures led to bankruptcy. So Bob wasn't an idiot, he just overestimated his abilities. My lawyer has contacted a friend of his who specializes in bankruptcy law, and I've talked with 2 of the previous clients about the situation. The large client has expressed interest in securing a source of the parts, but the smaller one had already been on the fence about discontinuing the product that required our parts. My lawyer has told me that this is unlikely to be resolved soon, but I've gotten the idea of giving my friend the business back as a birthday present. This tends to be a trend. There's some guy who has a lot of money and sees a business as an investment opportunity, comes in and completely shakes everything up without exactly knowing how everything works. This guy didn't seem like a complete idiot since he was trying to find ways around the situation, but at the end of the day, didn't see the value of our original poster. The fact of the matter is, what our original poster brought to the table is what made the entire company run. None of the output the company was making could be done without the original poster. That's the value. Whether you think they're doing a whole lot on a day-to-day basis or not is irrelevant. Without them, this is the situation you're dealing with. And you were forewarned about how this would go. You just chose not to listen and assumed you knew better. Didn't really work out so great for you, did it? You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode, also linked below. And don't forget to subscribe. My military sergeant was banging and screaming at the dorm door, but I still refused to open it, as per protocol. Many years ago, I had succumbed to a patriotic fever and enlisted in the Air National Guard. As such, I went to basic training. Yes, it's the same basic training the real Air Force goes to. Anyway, one of the first bits of training they try to hammer into your skull is the importance of dorm guard, or DG. DG is responsible for controlling who has access to the dormitories, reporting head count to night watch, and generally making sure everyone's okay and not starting fires or something. It's a very easy job, but trainees regularly screw it up because they can't think straight in a military training environment. If someone knocks on the dorm guard has to verify their ID against a list on the back of the door. No ID, no entry. If ID is presented but there's no matching name on the list, no entry. There are only two exceptions. If the person requesting entry has a key and uses the key in the lock, because holding it up to the window to show you you're a key holder isn't good enough. Yes, one trainee learned this the hard way. Or the person requesting entry can use a known code word, but this will only happen in an actual emergency and isn't part of the training experience. To quote my military training leader, if Osama bin Laden shows up to the door armed with an RPG and wrapped head to toe in dynamite and he gives you the code word, you let him in and stay out of his way. Everyone will do DG duty, and you should expect to be tested. They'll yell and threaten, try to trick you, intimidate you, and beat on the door mercilessly. But the protocol is gospel. Break from the rules and you'll find yourself writing letters to families of your fellow trainees, explaining that they're no longer with us because you couldn't remember how to guard a door. Looking at you, trainee. Oh, I see you have a key, let me open the door for you. Basic is a head game. They aren't allowed to physically touch you, so you're never in any actual danger. All danger is simulated by big bald sergeants yelling. I had the advantage of being almost 10 years older than the average trainee. I celebrated my 28th birthday during basic training. I've been yelled at before. It doesn't bother me. It's the middle of the night and I'm on duty. I do a head count. 51 people present, 50 people assigned. This means either I miscounted or someone's here that isn't assigned to be here. Not to mention whoever did the count before me has been screwing it up. I recount 51 of 50 and call it into the MTL or military training leader on duty, who wasn't our regular MTL, via the loud squawk box intercom on the wall which everyone in the dorm can hear. Sir, trainee original poster reports as ordered. Blah 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 other crap I had to report. Head count 50 assigned, 51 accounted for.
What was that head count again?
Sir, 50 assigned, 51 accounted for.
Wrong. Count them again.
Now, I've already checked and double-checked, and I've already assumed that this was a paperwork error and not my error, but they want me to follow orders and procedures, so that's what I'll do. I recount and report. Sir, 50 assigned, 51 accounted for.
So help me, trainee, if I have to come up there because you can't count, I'll choke you to death with your reflective belt and bury you in the parade ground with the flagpole up your butt. Now get everybody up. Sound off one by one so I can hear it.
By now, almost everyone is awake anyway, so everyone begins to sound off. 1 sir, 2 sir, 3 sir, 49 sir, 50 sir. Cut to the last guy shaking his head because he's scared of what he knows is coming next. 51 sir.
Gosh darn it, one of you useless idiots is gonna die tonight. I'm coming up there.
The dorm is a 2-minute walk from CQ. He was there in about 9 seconds banging on the door. But being as mad as he was, he stormed over without his key, his ID, and had apparently forgotten the fact that there was a single word that would open the door instantly. He was focused on fixing whatever was jacked up with my head count.
Open up!
Sir, may I see your authority to enter?
I just got off the comm with you. You let me in.
Sir, without valid ID, I'm forced to refer you to CQ for authorization.
Are you effing kidding me? I am the CQ. Cut your crap and open the dang door.
Sir, without valid ID, I cannot allow you to access the dorm. Please contact CQ for authorization. By now, the other trainees are nervous, and some are telling me to open the door, while others are insisting I keep it shut, perhaps indefinitely. Since the sergeant sounds like he may actually end someone's life tonight, I stick to the program, and we go back and forth like this a few times. I've honestly never had anyone this angry with me in my life, but all my replies are literally written on the back of the door, so I keep reading them to him, which only makes him madder and madder each time. By now, it's been 20 minutes since the first count, and he's used up every threat and insult at his disposal, and is forced to stop and think. He remembers the code word.
Code word!
I open the door immediately. He bolts past me with only the slightest pause for some direct eye contact, which sent the message that he'd be back shortly to harvest my flesh for a new suit he was gonna make. And he begins the count. 51.
Who of you is not supposed to be here?
Silence. Then from the last bunk, Sir? It's a guy we don't recognize. All our counting thus far took place in the dark. Until the sergeant was in the room and he turned the lights on, we had no idea. It turns out this kid had graduated the day before, but needed to be warehoused for a few weeks while he waited for his next training assignment to begin. He was supposed to be there, but since he wasn't on our roster, he wasn't included in the head count. Promises of extreme punishment were issued, and we were told that this wasn't over, and that the morning would be terrible for all of us, especially me. At 05:30, I was called on the carpet to explain why I refused to allow the sergeant to perform his duties. I stated, plainly and simply, that there were protocols and procedures in place for me to follow. I had been told never to deviate and that I would be tested. I had performed my duties to the best of my abilities. They could find no fault with this, and I was never punished. My MTL, not the one from Night Watch, later quietly congratulated me for sticking to the protocol. Ultimately, it reflected well on both of us. Like our original poster said, he didn't do anything wrong. He did exactly what he was supposed to be doing. That's his job. It's on the sergeant for forgetting all of his stuff, along with the code word for about 15 minutes there. Maybe he actually was just testing our original poster, but based on how angry he was getting and the fact that he did report it, I don't think that was the case. This guy probably didn't want to admit his mistake in forgetting his credentials and having to walk all the way back, along with forgetting the password as well. Best response for him in that scenario is just get more angry. Little did he know he was up against the brick wall that was our original poster. Racist soldier slashes black sergeant's tires and quickly comes to regret it. This is a story about my father's deceased friend, Jesse. Jesse died before Reddit, but he told me this story and I thought I'd share it. Sergeant Jesse was a black man, around 5'2", with a really wiry build. Total dynamo of a guy. Sergeant Jesse came back from Vietnam in E7 and was placed in command of a group of white soldiers who were led by a bunch of E6 good old boys who couldn't handle having a black man give them orders. Jesse didn't care. He just did his job. One day, Sergeant Jesse bought his wife a new Cadillac with white wall tires, and he drove it on base his first day to get his DOD window sticker. The car was parked in their company's parking lot where all the NCOs parked, and much to his surprise when he returned, all 4 tires were slashed. The E6s were all curious and asked,
"What are you gonna do? It could have been anybody. Are we gonna question the whole company about your wife's tires? By the way, how are you getting home?"
The only thing they didn't say was boy, but it was understood that they thought he was gonna have to either raise a huge ruckus and become a distraction to command right as he just got there, thus diminishing his reputation, or just eat this and keep on going. Jesse didn't play that way. He just said, "I'm not gonna look for who did this. He's gonna come to me." As first sergeant, Sergeant Jesse could authorize field training exercises and PT at his discretion. He called the company to order and told them they were going on field training exercises immediately. They were ordered to grab only their GI-issued gear and be prepared to overnight for several days. Then he walked them out into the woods for about 10 miles and told them to set up their tents, after they constructed the more permanent tent with the wooden floor and portable stove for him. He posted a guard at his door, lit a fire in the stove, and went to sleep. Did I mention it was December and that everyone else was sleeping on the ground in pup tents with no heat? So the exercises began. Jesse ran them like rented mules for 2 days through those woods. Long morning and evening runs. Push-ups, pull-ups, lunges, digging latrine trenches in frozen ground. You know, team building, camaraderie-inspiring torture. After 2 days, one of the E6s showed up with 2 black eyes. Looked like 10 pounds of poop in a 5-pound bag, as Jesse would say. Apparently, overnight, the company pulled a code red on his butt and beat him until he agreed to confess, because they were tired of living in the woods in winter. Jesse docked the man's pay and made him replace the tires, but didn't file charges against him because he thought he'd paid dearly enough. And more importantly, Jesse had made his point for everyone on base to see. Don't mess with Sergeant Jesse. First of all, let's just start with this kind of thing really sucks. This isn't something that anyone should have to deal with. It's clearly an act of racism and completely ignorant. That being said though, Sergeant Jesse handled this like a champ. Seriously, much respect for Sergeant Jesse. Not only did he deal with the situation without having to escalate and get other people involved, but he did so in a way that no one else on base is ever going to think of screwing with him like this again. Your ignorant racism did nothing but make you and all your fellow soldiers miserable for days. You thought you were the one sending a message? Clearly, you've never dealt with Sergeant Jesse. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories. Or if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode. If you like Am I the Jerk, give Am I the Genius a shot. Everything linked in the description.